Hi, everybody. Welcome to TCB Tuesday. If you're watching the replay, I'm so glad that you could join us. My name is Angela Young-Smucker, and I'm the Executive Director of Third Coast Baroque. Third Coast Baroque, if you're not familiar with us, we are an early music ensemble in Chicago, Illinois, and we have a mission to share the aesthetic of Baroque music while unlocking its relevance for today's audiences. And we are very excited to continue fulfilling that mission, whether we're online, virtual with you, or we are in person in the concert hall or out in the schools, out in the community. We're doing everything we can to stay connected with you. So thank you all for watching today. I see we've got several people already tuned in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Before we get started, I just have a few announcements that I want to make. First of all, please know that you can keep track of what we're doing by subscribing. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram. You can get on our email list. We don't send out a ton. We just keep you maybe once a week or once every other week to keep you informed on what's going on. You can do that at thirdcoastbaroque.org. And I will tell you, you definitely want to stay informed with what's going on, because on May 30th, we are hosting At Home Together, a benefit online, and it's going to be featuring a lot of our Third Coast Baroque artists. We have some very special guests lined up who will be joining us as well. And it'll be hosted by our artistic director, Ruben Dabrowski, and myself. So we're going to keep things rolling. That'll be May 30th, Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. Central Time. And we'll be on for about 2 hours. And if you can't catch us live, you'll be able to catch the rebroadcast for up to 48 hours after the broadcast has ended. So you've got until about Monday afternoon on June 1st. So we hope you'll join us live and see these incredible performances. We'll have live performances from our artist home. We'll have pre-recorded submissions that these folks are creating. We're doing some virtual music making. It's really exciting. So we do hope that you will join us. Now, hey, of course, John, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. And Lynn, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm going to stop yapping and I'm going to bring on my dear friend and fellow harmonizer, Liz Hagen. How you doing?
Hello, good.
Welcome, my dear.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yay. I'm loving the specs today. We got the fun
And
stuff going on.
50 and going blind. Just bound to happen.
Hey, I was blind when I was 7, so it can
Right,
come
nice.
anytime.
Right.
Well, we had a little chat yesterday, and I mentioned this when I was posting about our interview today, how I feel a lot of solidarity with violists in general. As an alto chorister, I feel like, we're really inside the texture of what's going on in the music, and maybe not the flashiest part ever. Like I've done a piece that's had one note, maybe two for the whole piece. And it's, it's a challenge.
It's right where I want to be, right where I want to be, deep
Oh.
inside, right in the middle, supporting and that interesting inner line. I'm very, very comfortable there. I do not want to be a soprano or a violinist or a trumpet player standing up in front of everyone. I'm happy to support from the inside with a lot of strength and power.
Well, and I think I know that anybody who has performed with you, collaborated with you, feels that from you during rehearsals and performances and just being around you. I mean, come on, folks, if you don't know Liz Hagen, she is an amazing woman.
Kids, there's something to learn today.
I love it. Oh, hey, Natalie is watching right now. Hi, Natalie. Oh my gosh. And we've got Peter David McCorkle wondering about Valpo. Oh, maybe we'll see how Valpo, how everything works out. Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to get into it. I'm going to start like we start all of our interviews Let's hear your origin story. I want people to know, how did you get started with all of this?
Yeah, well, I came from a family of, my father has no musical interest, talent, ability, but my mother, her father, my grandfather, who I did not even know, was an incredibly musical guy, not professionally, but just very talented, apparently was always singing, was an incredible whistler. So my mother, I grew up with a
Hold up.
mother who,
An
yeah,
incredible whistler.
yeah, apparently he had a thing for whistling. He was a great whistler.
That's an
Um,
incredible skill.
Yeah, and so I grew up with a very musical mom, again, not professional, but was always singing. And an
Mhm.
aunt, my Aunt Laura, is also an amazing singer. So I grew up with the two of them. No matter where we were singing. And from a young age, for some reason, I sang harmony. This was, I don't even know the timing of it all, but I think my mom would often sing harmony. So I'd get used to hearing that harmonic line. Skip
Mhm.
to fourth grade, I'm 9 years old. My wonderful string teacher, who I didn't think was wonderful at the time, in my little Cincinnati public school came around and we drew our hands on a piece of paper like a turkey drawing. And the next day they came back, if you were interested in strings. And she said, you play violin, you play cello, and Liz, you play viola. Okay. There were 5 or 6 of us maybe in my little public school. And that was it. I mean, most violists, as you may know, start playing violin and then switch over. I never learned the violin. I can play the
Wow.
violin.
Mhm.
Strangely, I play a lot of violin music on the viola. So for
Mhm.
me to switch over, it's a little confusing because I play treble clef on my viola all the time on my strings. So if I pick up a violin, it's a little bit confusing for me. So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I don't actually play violin.
Yeah.
But I learned on viola starting when I was 9, and just kept going. Was never too serious about it until it was going to get me into Northwestern on almost a full scholarship, and that's how it all started.
Well, I
Very
want to take
random.
no, it's fantastic because, like, there are different ways that people get into stringed instruments. And for me, like, I grew up in a really rural area in Southern Illinois, and we didn't have orchestras at all in my school, in the schools in my area. And so I'm always fascinated to know how people get to their stringed instruments.
Yeah, in
And
fourth grade. Oh, go
no,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, a lot of people talk about getting in like through Suzuki and all of that stuff, but to hear you getting into it, like I got into, school band playing the euphonium. I mean, I know, right?
So sexy.
Um, I know, right? Give that 10-year-old a tuba. But to hear you essentially got assigned your instrument.
Yeah, I mean, in fourth grade, it was the string program. If you wanted to play a string instrument, here's where you did it. And then next year in fifth grade, if you wanted to
Mhm.
play a band instrument, that's when you could do it. So, of course, I played the viola for a year. And then in fifth grade, I had to play the clarinet. God knows why.
Wow.
That was what I chose. And I started to go through the process. And my mom and my string teacher, I think, got together at the time and they sort of, in solidarity, said, you know what, you're pretty good. You're young and you're just beginning, but let's focus on one thing. So, thankfully, I don't even know if I ever rented the clarinet, but I stuck with the viola. We had a great string program in my school. Very, very,
Wow.
very fortunate, and joined the youth symphony. A couple years later,
Mhm.
there was a great youth symphony in Cincinnati that I was a part of, and yeah, I had a lot of great support from a young age.
I
A
love
very
that.
dedicated mother who just loved it more than anything, was so patient, listened to me
Mhm.
practice, sounding horrible, schlepped me to lessons, bribed me like crazy because I never wanted to practice,
Mhm.
wouldn't let me quit. Again, in solidarity with my private teacher then at the time, they kept me going, and here I am.
Well, okay, 2 things. Number 1, let's give a shout out to all of these parents, particularly mothers, and a happy belated Mother's Day to you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Since our Sunday Mother's Day celebration, all of these parents who, of course, they know better. They always know better than a 9-year-old, right? But but they keep pushing us and
Right.
encouraging us to stick with it and go through that uncomfortable and messy and
Mm-hmm.
dirty process of practice and ugly noises and so hats off to the
Right.
parents who do that.
Right. I
you
couldn't
know
do it. I mean, as a parent, I tried with
Mhm.
my son who was incredibly gifted from a young
Yeah.
age and started him on violin and he was
Mhm.
amazing and I pushed too hard and it exploded. So it gives
Ah.
me a sort of even a more of an appreciation for my mom. I mean, there's certainly something to be said for being a professional musician and then trying to have a kid do it and to back off the right amount, to be involved the right amount. It was a very difficult dance that I could not navigate. Many professional musicians do, and their kids are wonderfully talented and continue. I just couldn't do it. So more thanks to my mom for sticking with it. It's not easy. I know.
Well, before I want to hear more about your journey with the instrument, but can we just pause for a second? And just for anybody who's not clear, like, what is the difference between a viola and a violin? I think
the viola burns longer.
Yes, I should say, should we allow people to put their viola jokes in the comments? I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Be nice. That's all I want to say. If you can just give us, a little rundown on the differences between the viola and the violin or the other string family.
Okay, basically the first obvious difference is the size. Some more obvious than others. I have two violas. My modern viola is incredibly large, so it's a clearly bigger instrument than a violin. My Baroque viola is not so much larger, but it is slightly larger, and it's a fifth lower. The strings are lower, so I have a low C string, where the lowest string on a violin is a G. So technically it's basically the same. Things are gonna be a little further apart, your fingers, and you're gonna have to hold a little bigger. But beyond that, like, technically, it works the same way. The repertoire is very different. A violin, as we talked about, is a harmony instrument. It's often playing the high, the melody, the more like technically fiery whatever line, and the viola is more supportive, inner line harmonies. People say the viola is easier. But I don't know, it's a different strength. I mean, it's definitely a different strength to learn how to work from the inside and to support and to fit in there. But beyond that, I mean, physically they're just, it's a size and a string issue.
Right. It's sort of like that flute to piccolo type of thing.
Yeah. Some people don't even know really that they're looking at a viola versus, I mean, if honestly, like, if you're not a musician and you've never really learned, people think, oh, you play the violin. Like I said, my modern viola is huge, so it looks really weird, and you might look at me and think, what is that humongous violin she's playing? But that's what it is.
I love it. Now, sorry, just a really weird random question. When you started as a 9-year-old, was that a scaled down instrument as well, or did you just start?
Oh yeah. No. I mean, you start like on, I mean, little Suzuki violins play like on a quarter and eighth size teeny ones, and they get bigger. So they make little violas. I mean, it could be a violin strung as a viola. It doesn't really, at that point, it's like the same box basically. Yeah, you're frozen up on me, Angie.
It's a little bit. Oh, I think we got it back now. Are we good now?
You're back. Yep.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that, folks. Thanks for hanging in. Oops. I've got all sorts of technology. Yes. Problem. Thanks, phone. Okay. All right. So I want to go back to your musical journey. And so you joined youth orchestras when you were in high school, and then we get into Northwestern. Talk about that.
Well, like I said, it's sort of growing up, it came pretty easy to me. I wasn't the hardest working kid. I kept it going and I did what I had to do, but it wasn't something that I wasn't locked up in a practice room for hours and hours a day as a young elementary, then middle school kid. I joined the Youth Symphony. I made my way up to principal of the Youth Symphony. Again, it was just sort of like it came easy to me. And thankfully I had a great teacher in Cincinnati. I was kind of the big fish. Well, then it came time for college, and I thought, well, my teacher was very supportive and suggested I apply for music scholarships. At that point, what else did I know? That's what I'd spent a lot of time. I had a lot of fun. I had friends. We traveled. We went to, music conventions and stuff. It was my life. So I thought, sure, I'll audition. Ended up applying to Northwestern, Indiana, Oberlin, and got into all three, and chose to go to Northwestern because at the time I still didn't know that this was going to be my life and my career. I thought, yeah, I'm good at this. It'll help me get into college and help pay for college. Right. But I want to go to a school where the academics are still an option in case this is not something for me. So I had done a summer program at Northwestern before college, loved the place, loved Chicago, grew up coming here a lot with my family. It was far enough, but not too far. And they gave me an incredible package. And so I chose to come to Northwestern, where I was quickly, my eyes were open that I was not the best anymore. And I was going to have to work a little bit harder. I still had some attitude that took some time to like get that out of me. But yeah, that's how I ended up in Northwestern, and I never left Chicago.
That's
Now
amazing.
it's
That's
home.
amazing.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so before we came on, we were talking about I'm getting ready to teach a class about it's called Career Skills for the Entrepreneurial Musician, and
Hmm.
just sort of the boring adulting skills that we all learn on the job as performers. But
Totally.
if can you remember if anytime as a student and you were majoring in music, were you thinking, "Oh my gosh, I don't think am I going to be able to make a living in doing this?" Or did that ever sort of cross
Right.
your
It's such a
mind?
good question because I can't remember that at all. I remember
Yeah.
one class, one time they brought in Cliff Colnut, who was like a big, big recording guy here in town. He used to be
Hmm.
still around, but he was like the guy that everybody wanted to work for, get in and do sessions. And he came in and he gave us like an hour, whatever, lecture on
Hmm.
how to do the business of music. And the one thing I remember is how incredibly strong he was about teaching. Like, you cannot be late. Basically, if you show up late, you're screwed. Like, don't
Yeah.
be late. I mean, that's, it's a valuable lesson. There's a lot more to learn, and I don't know why
Right. Of
that's the one
course.
thing I took away from that. But no, I don't remember thinking at all about really what I was going to do. I mean,
Hmm.
the normal course would be to go to grad school or start to take auditions for symphony orchestras, and
Right.
I don't remember enough, but I don't imagine that I was like on that path.
Hmm.
Maybe that's what I thought at the time, but I started working freelance even before I graduated. I was hired for some
Right.
church gigs, and that just sort of became my path. I don't know. I it's
Yeah.
just
No, that's it's a question I'm always very curious about.
I would have loved to have a class, and I think what you're doing is fabulous, and I'm sure they're
Awesome.
doing more of that now. This was a long time ago, but there's so many
Hmm.
valuable things to learn about, even like contracting, and
Hmm.
about just, money management, and about how to be how to be a good employee in these situations, and how to work
Hmm.
and well with others, and what's important. I mean, there would have been so many wonderful, valuable things I would have loved to learn, and I would assume they're teaching that more now than they did back in the
Yeah,
old
it's
days.
it's it's starting to become part of the curriculum more and more
Yeah.
now, just because, and I think that that's an effect of the general economy. I mean, we hear about the gig economy more and more now.
Hmm.
And I think the fact that we are in a gig economy, we've always been in a gig economy as artists,
Right.
that the the educational institutions are starting to catch up to, oh, what does that mean, and there are more resources out there, and so
Right.
I love talking about that and sharing that with
Yeah.
students and colleagues. But anyway, so you're already, on fire, like while you're a student, getting the gigs, doing the things, and then and then you graduate. And were you playing Baroque viola yet, or
I was not really playing Baroque viola yet at all. I
okay,
auditioned for some of the regional orchestras that a lot of young graduates or play for. Civic at the time wasn't a paid job like it is now, so I
okay.
didn't even audition for Civic. I needed to make money. I had graduated college. I stayed in my Evanston apartment, so I
Hmm.
auditioned and got into things like the Northwest Indiana Symphony and the Lake Forest Symphony. And there I started to meet people who started to hire me for freelance gigs. And
Hmm.
I started to make money, and I was living independently and had a boyfriend and was having fun, and I loved my life. So I ended up applying to grad school just because that's sort of what you did. I wasn't ready to take auditions, and I didn't really know
Hmm.
what I was doing. So everyone was applying for grad school. So I applied to Indiana and Oberlin again, and then just decided that I didn't want to go to grad school. I knew that I didn't want to be a teacher
Hmm.
in a serious way. It just wasn't for me. I'd always
Sure.
had jobs outside of music. I like to live, not that it's bad to be all music, but I always wanted to do other things as well.
Hmm.
Um, so I knew I didn't ever really need the degree for teaching, and I was working, and I was a violist.
Hmm.
And so I decided to not go to grad school at the time. And I always thought that maybe someday in the future I'd go for something other than music. I remember saying that, like, well, I'm not going to go for music. Someday I'll go get a degree in English or philosophy or whatever it was. And I never did. And I just kept working and gaining more and more, getting into bigger and bigger circles, and really, really building a really nice base for myself as a freelance musician. I was happy here. I didn't want to move to a place where I didn't know anyone. I didn't want to lock myself in a practice room for 2 years, which is
Hmm.
probably what I would have had to do to win a big orchestra job. I was still studying occasionally with local teachers, and I was just happy here.
I love it.
So,
I
yeah,
love it. So, okay, so how did you first make that transition into
my
the
big
field of
break.
period performance, a
I
Baroque
had my big
performance.
break. You hear
Yeah.
about it in the theater. I had my big break.
Yes.
I got a call one day, one of my colleagues here in Chicago, who was also a violist and had gotten very ill. I think he had an appendix erupt or something, and he couldn't
Mhm.
go to his gig in Cleveland with Apollo's Fire, which is this fabulous Baroque chamber orchestra. Could I go?
Mm.
And I thought, sure. I mean, I didn't own a Baroque viola. I'd never studied Baroque viola. I'd played little bits here and there with folks in the town who had been in the early Baroque groups, basically Bach and what
Mhm.
was the other one? I forget the
Chicago
name of the other
Bach
one.
or Chicago Baroque
Chicago
Ensemble.
Chicago Baroque Ensemble, and there was
Mhm.
another one, but I forget the name. So I had
Mhm.
been playing with them and learning the style just in
Mhm.
my way, but I'd never, officially studied. So I thought, sure, who knows why I made that decision. Canceled my gigs here, and I got myself to Cleveland, and I was thrown into it very, very
Wow.
abruptly in an amazing situation. It was one on a part. I remember walking into this church very clearly, and some of the
Mhm.
best Baroque violinist, Robert Mealy, who's one of like the best Baroque
Yeah.
violinists around. He was sitting there, and two other folks from two other amazing Baroque musicians. We were playing quartet, and it was Dido and Aeneas at the Cleveland
Mm.
Art Museum. And I just jumped in, and I again, I don't know how I did it, but I felt, and I still feel like a sponge, just constantly trying
Mhm.
to learn from everyone around me. And I
Oh,
guess I did okay because they had me back, and they ended up playing with Apollo's Fire for probably 9 or 10 years,
wow.
traveling back and forth to Cleveland when I was still single and living in Evanston. And I just learned by doing. I really, really did. I was very, very, very curious and
Mm.
very excited and very interested about learning Baroque music. And so I think that's what worked for me. I
Yeah.
never, yeah.
Well, and this is my opinion, and I'm sure there are other people who would agree with me that I would say that a lot of your success and what's given you this really strong career in performance is because you are this continual learner and open to learning
Mm,
more. Um, I feel
thanks.
like the most successful folks are those who are perpetual learners.
I feel that way too. And I've said that over the years when people have asked me, like, why don't you audition for this, or would you move to the and
Mhm.
and how did you get into this, or and some of the things a lot of things at this point we don't really audition for anymore. We
Mhm.
know people, we play together.
Right.
But I also think obviously you have to be a good musician, as we know, but I do think that having the right attitude, which is perhaps something that you teach your students, which is so
Mhm.
important. It's
Mhm.
about the kind of person you are. Like, yes, I can play viola. A lot of people can play viola. I'm not the best technician out there, but
Mhm.
I do feel like being a person who is open to learning and who works well with others, and who is obviously responsible and shows up at and does the basic stuff like that well. But there's a lot to be
Mhm.
said for being a person who wants to grow and who is open to growth,
Mm.
and who is not so set in their ways that they're not going to work with they're not going to take suggestions from other people. That just doesn't feel good. And so in the groups where we're all like, so many of us are friends and we get along, and
Mhm.
we can criticize in the kindest, most like hopefully helpful way. And like, I love that stuff. Tell me what I'm
Mhm.
doing wrong. I want to learn from
Yeah.
you. So
Yes.
I
Oh
think
my
that
gosh,
that's
I love
helped.
that. Well, and I mean that collaboration and that support and that honesty among artists, among colleagues, I think ultimately, if coming from a sincere and uh, yeah, a sincere intention, it's only going to
Right.
help one another,
Right.
and if it's received that way too. I mean, that's I know Natalie, she and I go back and forth about all sorts of stuff. Like, is this going to work? Is that going to work? We'll shoot it straight. It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so can when I had Marty on, we were talking about how period instruments, people are either playing on replicas or authentic instruments from
Mhm.
the 16th and
Mhm.
17th and 18th century.
Yeah.
Um, can you tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
your viola?
My Baroque viola is so cool. It is actually from the period. It was made in 1765 by a German maker named Klotz. Now, there were a couple of Klotzes. There were different brothers, and we're not exactly sure. But this was an instrument that I found. There was a wonderful man who's since passed away, but I learned of him from Susan and John Mark Rosendahl years ago, named Dan Draley, and he was just a character who went around and found instruments for folks. So for many years, that first year, and then for many years after, all I did was borrow viola because I didn't, I went to Cleveland 6 times a year, and that was kind of it in the beginning. But when it came time for me to buy my own, I put the word out to him, and he found me this amazing old instrument that someone had modernized and had played in a modern orchestra. And I think at one time it had been broken and had been repaired. So the value wasn't as much as it would have been had it been in pristine condition, but it was perfect for me. So I got it from him, and I took it to Bill Monacle in New York, and he baroqued it for me somewhat, not completely. I still haven't had the fingerboard adjusted, but it's a beautiful instrument. I love the way it looks. It doesn't always make the most beautiful sound, in my opinion. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to get a good sound out of it. And I've toyed over the years. There have been opportunities for modern makers to make me a viola, or there have been things out there. And I'm always tempted, but I always come back to just loving the history and this instrument, loving the way it looks, and loving that it is a really old instrument. So I still dream about having it worked on. Someday. I've tried to give it to different makers to sort of make it sound better, and haven't quite gotten there yet, but I still dream about like having it even restored and re-baroqued. So someday it'll have some more work done, but I do love it. It's beautiful and it's small, which is really nice for me because my modern viola is so big. So I love that it's small and it's easier to play. And
so I mean, do you have little things that you like or find comfort in whenever you go from one instrument to the other, like things like
absolutely,
you know that you're going to feel this when you pick up your modern
instrument. Well, I mean, with my modern instrument, I play it and it sounds good. Like it's just easy to sound good, but it's a monster and it's heavy and it's like physically heavy and it hurts more, and my hands have to stretch out so much further. And then when I go to my Baroque viola, it feels closer, it's smaller, it's easier to play because there's not so much stretching and reaching, it's lighter weight. And I love that physically, like another difference between the two. With my modern viola, we use a big shoulder rest, a big heavy thing, and a chin rest, and it feels different. And with our Baroque violas, all I have is a cloth. I don't even have a sponge, just a cloth to keep it from sliding. So there's a deeper connection, a more instant connection between the instrument and my body. You can actually feel it vibrating in your bones, and you can hear the sound is less dampened because there's not the shoulder rest and the chin rest, which we need to play modern repertoire, which is harder and higher, and we need that support as we climb up the fingerboard. And so with the different repertoire, you don't need all that help necessarily. And I love the way my Baroque viola feels just close against my body.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. And remind me, sorry, did you grow up singing as well, or
not really, just singing with my mom and my aunt in the car, but no, I was never a real, I mean, I was in choirs and stuff, but not like you.
That counts, Liz. That totally counts. No, I asked just because there's and I think whether you're singing or you're playing an instrument, you're going to get that physical feedback from your instrument. You're going to physically feel that vibration. And oh man.
I tell people, like, when they ask about this difference, and I tell people with Baroque music, it's more like you're dancing. You're not using vibrato, and you're not using all this very virtuosic, fancy, like technical stuff. It's more dancing and the freedom and the movement, and sometimes even emphasizing notes with the movement of your body. I love, and I love that it's simpler technically, so that your hands just feel. I don't know. I just feel very, very connected when I play the instrument. I mean, there are other pains for sure. It's not always comfortable holding this wooden thing against your chin for 8 hours a day. So there are issues, but there are also a lot of great things about it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that so much. I want to take a break for just 1 second and check in with our comments. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. We would love to answer your questions. Liz, we have a comment from Brad Gendel, who said that he's known you since
Brad
4th
Gendel.
grade.
Yeah.
Oh, Gendel. I'm so sorry, man. That's my thing. I am just butchering names. It's terrible. But Brad, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, Brad.
You stumbled on our little live stream. It's fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah, so if you have any questions about the viola, John Sagos, our other violist in the TCB community, I know you've got stuff on your mind. But and if you're just joining us, I'm here with Liz Hagen. She is the principal violist of Third Coast Baroque. And I'm so excited that she's here with me today. So, John has a question. Did you have to relearn how to play the viola when you started playing Baroque viola?
That's an interesting question. And I think about that when I talk about the differences in the sizes of my two instruments, because you would think like, wow, you have to really adjust to go back and forth between the two. And for some strange reason, or this is just the gift that we have been given, it's okay. I mean, certainly I had to learn how to play a Baroque viola without a chin rest and without a shoulder rest, and to hold it, you hold it a little bit higher, and so the positioning is a little bit different.
Do you have to like raise your shoulder higher when
I mean, it's not something you really think about, but you probably do. You probably do. And just getting used to that was different. What always amazes me is that I can go from, where my fingers are going to be like this on my big viola, they have to be really stretched out, to just like the slightest adjustments have to be made because the fingerboard's shorter. And I'll have a day where I'm running back and forth between, I have a Baroque game and a modern game, and you just do it. Just like you sing at 4:15 and then you go later in the day and you sing at 4:40. It's just one of these things that we just do.
Yeah.
So I don't have to think too much about that. But I did have to physically, I always have to, physically kind of get used to scooting things over a little bit and holding without the help, for sure.
Right. Oh man. Well, John, great question. Thank you, my
friend. Good
friend.
question, John.
Yes, very good viola question. So, right now we're working on our benefit for May 30th, and we've got some virtual music making that's happening. We've got people collaborating from their homes and essentially putting multi-tracks together and putting recordings together. How are you feeling about all this virtual music making that's going on right now as a as a participant, as a listener? Like, what are
mixed for sure. I mean, as a listener, it's fun because I get to hear a lot of things that I would never hear just on Facebook and Instagram, all the groups that are playing together, and like really great stuff is happening. And like I said, these groups that I would never ever hear, wonderful, all sorts of wonderful things. But personally, I don't love it. It's not great. I mean, I know it's better, maybe it's better than nothing, but it's a totally different medium, in my opinion. Like, making music is about being together and about breathing and about, rehearsing and talking about every note and every phrase and really being particular about how we want things to go. And or if you're not even rehearsing for perfection, if you're just sitting down to read chamber music, it's about feeling it together, and it's about movement, and it's about eye contact, and that just cannot replicate that doing these things online. It's fun, and it's fun to play together and see the finished product, but it's technically it's difficult. I've had a few situations where trying to follow a conductor and a harpsichord track that was down, and things just aren't together. No fault of anyone's. It's not anyone's lack of ability. It's just the technology. So, you try to do your best.
As we go, a lot of us.
Right. And then it's sort of like, when we used to, in lessons, a lot of times learning, I would record myself to listen to sort of hear, and it's so enlightening. So I'm getting a little bit of that. And like when I hear myself, just the viola track of this piece, it's like, wow, is that what I sound like? And then it's a little bit intimidating to have to send that on to someone else who's going to do the editing. But, it all sounds nice together. But I much prefer to play in person and to play in a group, and the fact that I play with my friends, like you guys are all my closest people. It's not just like going to work in an office where my colleagues at work, hi, how you do? Like, we love each other. We get personal. It's emotional. Music makes me very emotional. It's powerful stuff that some people just don't understand, except for us, like why we're doing it when we're doing it. And so that stuff, there's no replacing that. So I look forward to, and I hope we'll be able to do it again someday.
We will. If I hear the word uncertain one more time, I don't know, but it's just, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that's where we are. And so, I think we have to continue to remind ourselves what we're wanting to get back to, getting back into that live music making, getting back into that dialogue with the audience. I mean, I think about, and this is just totally off the wall. I used to be really into competitive marching band.
Of course you did. You roller derby queen. Yeah, come on.
Now, I didn't march. But I loved watching it. I would watch the PBS specials all the time, and then I got a chance to go. I know this is a nerd. This is
Love it.
this is the face of a nerd. Okay, but no, I would watch the PBS specials of the Drum Corps International, and then I remember my husband and I, we were living, oh gosh, I don't remember, in Indiana or somewhere, and they had like a regional competition nearby. I was like, we are going, spent the whole day there. And my favorite thing that would happen, I don't know if you've ever experienced any of these things, but the band marches to the back of the field. They've got their backs to the audience. They're playing, and then all of a sudden they turn 180 and do this company front and blast in your face. And I'm just like, this is what Beethoven 9 must have felt like the first time.
Right.
You know, this is what Verdi's Requiem must have felt like for the first time, or a B minor mass for the first time. Just this wall of sound coming at you, you know?
Right. And that happening now too, like the live, you don't get that when you're recording it. Like there's just the happening now, the live real time. I miss that too. There's so many things that we miss and don't transfer, but we're doing what we can.
Well, maybe we'll do a company front on season.
Talk to Marty. He's the choreographer, right?
Well, I know Ben was preparing Leonard Bernstein's mass, which that has the marching band in it, right?
I don't know. I don't know, actually.
Yes, there's a marching band.
Okay.
And so I think we'll have to educate Ruben in the ways of the American marching band. I think we can do
no one better. We clearly have a voice there in our own Angela.
Fantastic.
It's one thing to be in the band. It's another thing to go watch bands. So I'm gonna think about that for a while.
I don't know. I see like a drum major costume in your future.
Anyway,
all right, but I digress. Well, so speaking of Third Coast Baroque, as I mentioned, you are our principal violist, and we are so lucky to have you. Would you mind just sort of telling folks like what your experience with Third Coast Baroque has been like?
Yeah, it's I joined a little bit late. I know Ruben came to town for a couple of years before I was a part of the orchestra for whatever reason, conflicts or something. And so what strikes me about the group is really Ruben. I mean, it's great to play with the people in the group, but I play with those people in a lot of other groups. So what sets this group aside for me is really the leadership of him. He's got amazing energy, amazing. I don't know what the word is, but just I love the way that he includes everyone. It seems to include everyone in decisions about the music. He's very open to listening to what people have to say, to trying new ideas. Some leaders and conductors, you don't feel like your voice is really that welcome. It's like, I'm in charge and you're here and you kind of do, and maybe I'll take your suggestion, but not really. And some really put themselves up on a pedestal where there's no room for suggestions. So I love that it does really feel like a family. Like we can speak and he wants to hear what we have to say, but his musical energy is infectious. You can just to watch him play or to conduct and to dance around, and he's just so, I love his energy. The orchestra is very, very well run. We're very well treated. The rehearsals are lovely. It's in a nice place. I love that it's small. I know maybe ultimately we're trying to grow, but I like sometimes just to be the only viola player, though sometimes it'd be fun to have more support, and I know we do. But yeah, I love playing with Marty, our concertmaster. I love learning from him. I adore his playing, and he's someone who I also always feel like there's something to learn. He's very, very, very good at what he does, and so natural, and it makes it look so easy. So there's just so much to be learned from playing with him. And I don't know, it's just a great group where people really, really care. Everybody really wants to be there. I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. And I can't wait till we can do it again.
Oh,
in
wow.
person.
Well, Thank you. First of all, I think that's so beautiful. And
And
I'm
it's
gonna
nice that there's, I mean, there wasn't a big, sorry to interrupt you,
no,
but
that's
just the Baroque scene in Chicago, you know, there were years with before I graduated college where things were going with, why can't I remember? Basically Bach and what
mhm,
was the other? Not Chicago Baroque Ensemble and anyway. But then there were many years where there was no real organized Baroque group in town. So it's
mm,
wonderful to have Third Coast Baroque exist at all. You know, just
mm.
the more we need more of these groups. We don't need more, but it's wonderful to have Third Coast Baroque as a really great working Baroque group who plays on period instruments and does it so well. So I'm
Oh,
thankful
well,
for that.
I think the reason that we can do what we do is because we have artists like you, forming the backbone of the organization, of the ensemble. And yeah, I mean, I love that we have this flexibility to be so small. I talk about this a lot, how the ensemble uh, can fit the repertoire. We
Mm,
do a wide variety of repertoire, and we've done things that are for, well, the April concert was going to be very small. I mean, it was an
yeah.
artist led chamber ensemble of a string quartet and a harpsichord and theorbo. I mean,
Mm,
it's this tiny little group.
hmm
But we were able to do things big like the Handel Triumph last year with the full orchestra and the soloist and the winds and the whole
hmm
bit. And so it's cool to see um how different the ensemble can be depending on the program. Awesome.
hmm
Oh, Lynn
hmm
Schatz. Can't wait to be back in the TCB audience live. Oh, we feel you, Lynn. We feel the same way. Oh my gosh. Um, well, we are getting to the end of our time, but I want to ask you one more question. This is kind of a general thing. We're all safe at home. We're all still, a lot of us are still under stay-at-home orders. I'm down here in Florida where things are starting to gradually open up. You're in Illinois where things are pretty um,
I'm not going anywhere.
formalized. Well, so what have you been able to do over the last couple of months, I guess, to sort of take care of yourself and find some comfort and find some normal while you've
hmm
been under a stay-at-home order?
The silver linings we're talking about a lot. Well, I in the beginning I was really kind of into this because I like the slow pace. One
Mhm.
thing I love is not driving. I spend a lot of time on a regular week driving because I live out in the suburbs and a lot of the work is in the city. So I appreciated that. I appreciated being home and having time and having family meals, all the stuff that people say. I've been baking a lot and
Yeah,
practicing a little bit, not enough. That's been a little bit challenging. Just
okay.
the music stuff. But I also work for my husband has a manufacturing business and I do the bookkeeping for him. So I have my home office set up here. I'm able to bring that work home and work on my own schedule, which is great. And I've been taking a lot of time to exercise and take long walks, which has been nice.
Mm,
You know, in the beginning, I thought, oh, it'll last a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months. And now, as the
mhm.
days go on, and it seems like it's going to be much longer, it gets a little bit harder for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm doing lots of Zooming. I'm learning. You know, I have virtual Zoom cocktail parties. I'm taking classes through Zoom and connecting with old friends, which has been great. So I'm trying to make the best of it.
That's awesome. And I think that's all we can do right now. And I speaking of silver linings, I think this for me has been a silver lining because it's allowed, you know, selfishly, I get to talk to you guys and get to know more about you than, just during a little quick break.
Right. We never have time at breaks. It's like we always want to
It's
talk
like
more and we
we got
never get to.
we gotta shove
Yeah.
food in our face, like, "Oh, I
Right.
gotta go to the
Right.
bathroom, and okay, I got 3
Right.
minutes. How you doing? Everything okay? You're
Right.
pregnant?
Right.
Oh,
Right.
that's great.
Right.
Wonderful. Bye."
I'm not pregnant. I'm
You're not
not
pregnant.
pregnant.
No.
No.
But no, I
I
mean,
have been eating.
that's good. I
Yeah.
cooked the chicken the other night. I never cooked. This is amazing.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but yeah, I think finding these little silver linings is to me has been extremely helpful. And practicing has been whatever, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
I think some people find it really challenging to make music at all during this
Yeah.
time. And so the fact that there are still people out there making music from home. And I'm so grateful for our artists who are contributing to the benefit and sharing their music with each other and with our audiences. Can't wait.
I can say the anticipation of returning to work is incredible. And as it mounts, like as we get closer to sort of knowing when that will be, it's going to be amazing. When we finally can play together again, it's going to be so amazing. And we're going to not take it for granted. And all those things that we had, we say things can't go back to the way they were. So things have got to change, and we got to do things differently. And I'm not exactly sure how that's going to happen, but I know I'm really excited, and I'm going to try really hard to not take that for granted anymore. I'm always thankful that I get to do what I do for a living, and that I work with such amazing people, most of whom are very dear friends. So it's all good. And we'll be back together.
We will. Well, I think that's a beautiful place to wrap up today. I'm glad that you were with me today, Liz. And I'm so glad so many of you joined us today and asked your questions. And my goodness, we've got back to 4th grade going today. It's incredible. It's incredible.
My mind still goes back that far.
That's great. Well, Liz, thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to let you go, but have a great day. And
thank you, dear.
We'll be seeing
Thanks
you.
for all your hard work for keeping this amazing organization going and doing it really, really well. Because obviously we wouldn't be anything without you and Ruben and all your incredible work behind the scenes. And we get to see you in front, but you do so much. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Stay healthy.
Likewise.
Stay healthy.
We'll see you soon, Liz.
I'll see you later. Okay. Bye.
Oh, wow. That was so wonderful. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm so glad we got to talk with Liz Hagen, our principal violist for Third Coast Baroque. Before we leave you today, I just want to let you know that this Thursday, on Third Coast Thursday, we have Miriam Bari, visual artist and costumer, joining us. And she's going to talk about work that she's done with Third Coast Baroque, as well as how did she get into costuming from having a PhD in biology. I mean, this is incredible. So make sure you tune in for that. If you can't tune in live, you can always catch the replay. You can catch the replay if you missed anything today. This video and all of our other interviews are posted on our social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also go to our website and find out more about what's going on. And just one more reminder that we have our At Home Together benefit on May 30th, live online. You can tune in to our website, our social media channels, all of the places that you can subscribe and follow us. You'll be able to watch live May 30th, 1 p.m. Central Time. We'll be on for about 2 hours, and then the broadcast will be available for replay for 48 hours once the once the event has ended. So make sure you tune in and see our wonderful artists live. Also, if you haven't already, maybe consider a small gift to Third Coast Baroque. We want to make sure that we are around now and for seasons to come, so we can continue to bring you incredible artists like Liz, like Marty, all of our usual suspects, and wonderful guest artists that we're planning to bring in. We're going to talk about our new season, or our next season, on May 30th as well. So make sure you don't miss out on that. But until then, I hope you all stay well, stay safe, stay healthy. Make sure to catch up with us online, and we'll see you next time, friends.